I've always appreciated the solitude that comes with trucking. A lot of folks can't deal with the long, empty roads and miles of nothing. But for me, it's peaceful. It's just you, your rig, and the road. No people, no distractions, just your own thoughts for company. At least, that's how it usually goes. I was somewhere deep in Nevada one night, surrounded by absolute silence. No towns, no lights, no cars, just black highway, stretching forever. It was around midnight when I started noticing something strange. The engine let out a quiet sputter, barely noticeable, but enough to put me on edge. I checked the dashboard, but everything looked fine. No warning lights, no signs of failure. Still, the engine kept making that soft, dry cough, like it was struggling to keep up. I had a couple of hours before the next stop and thought I could push through. But 20 minutes later, that faint sputter turned into a full stutter, and suddenly the engine gave up. The rig slowed to a stop on the shoulder, and just like that, the only sound left was the thick silence. I sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel, annoyed and confused. The truck had always been solid, no recent issues. I tried the ignition again, hoping it was a fluke. All I got was that lifeless click. After switching on the hazards, I stepped outside. The desert air was heavy and strangely warm, not what I expected at that time of night. I grabbed my flashlight and opened the hood. I'm not a mechanic, but I know my truck well enough to spot obvious problems. Nothing seemed out of place, no smoke, no leaking fluids, but still, the engine wouldn't respond. I climbed back into the cab and tried the CB, called out for anyone nearby. My voice bounced into the void and came back as nothing but static. Tried again, louder, still no response. No signal on my phone either. I was completely cut off. That's when I noticed a pair of headlights way down the road. They crept closer, and soon enough, a worn-out pickup pulled up a few yards ahead of me. A man stepped out, tall, thin, wearing old dusty clothes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Something about him immediately felt off. He asked if I needed help. His voice was low and rough, almost too casual. I explained that the engine had just died. He offered to take a look. I hesitated, my instincts flared. But I was stuck in the middle of nowhere. I nodded. He walked to the front of the truck with this unsettling slowness, like each step was deliberate. Instead of checking things or asking questions, he just stood there staring at the engine. Head slightly tilted, barely moving. It was like he wasn't even focused on the truck. I stood behind him, watching. The longer he stayed quiet, the more my stomach churned. Something didn't sit right. Eventually, he turned back and said something about knowing a place nearby where he had tools that he could help tow the rig and get it fixed. But there was a strange tone in his voice, calm on the surface, but something darker underneath. Everything in me screamed not to go with him. I told him I'd wait for a tow instead. He didn't like that. His face changed, eyes narrowing just slightly. He didn't argue, just looked at me for a long moment before walking back to his truck. But he didn't leave. He stayed parked, lights on, engine running. I got back into my cab and locked the doors. Watched him through the mirror. Time dragged on. A half hour passed. Then an hour. Still, he didn't move. Then his truck inched forward and pulled up beside mine. I saw his silhouette in the window, lit faintly by the dashboard. He didn't speak at first, just stared. Then the window rolled down, and he asked again if I was sure I didn't want help. His voice wasn't friendly this time. It had an edge. I didn't respond. I just stayed quiet. He stepped out of his truck again. My heart pounded as I reached under the seat for the tire iron. My hand was shaking. He walked toward my door, slow like before, too slow, purposeful. He knocked hard. I stayed still. He knocked again, louder. Then came his voice, low and sharp, telling me to open up, saying we needed to talk. I gripped the tire iron tighter. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. He rattled the door handle, tried it once, then again. I was frozen, ready for something to happen. But just as he started to reach more forcefully, Headlights appeared behind me. Another engine. Another truck approaching fast. The man paused. He looked back, stared for a few seconds, then walked to his own truck without a word, got in, drove off fast into the night. The other truck pulled up behind me. Took me a minute to get out and wave the driver down. I explained what had happened. He stayed with me until a tow finally arrived. I've driven a lot of miles, but I've never forgotten that night. That man wasn't there to help. I could feel it in every second he stood by my door. Since then, I don't stop for anyone. Not out here. Sometimes the ones who seem to offer help are the exact ones you should be most afraid of. I've always liked the quiet. Just me, the road, and a few hundred miles ahead. Most people say night driving is lonely or creepy, but it's when I feel most at peace. That constant hum of the engine, the yellow line slipping past in the headlights, the stillness of everything around me, it just works. Some folks need music or a podcast blasting to keep them sane on long hauls, but not me. I've come to appreciate the silence. It gives my mind room to breathe. Sometimes I'll go for hours without saying a word, just the occasional sip of coffee or glance at the clock to remind me I'm still part of the world. But not that night. I was hauling a load through a stretch of highway I knew well, isolated, no towns, no other cars, no lights, just darkness pressing in on all sides. The kind of dark that makes you feel like you're floating through nothing. I remember how the tires sounded on the asphalt, almost too loud, like they were echoing back at me. Every crack in the pavement, every shift in the suspension, it all felt sharper than usual, like the road was trying to talk back. I noticed her standing off to the right, near a busted fence post. At first, she barely looked real, just a pale figure in the distance. As I got closer, it became clear. A woman standing alone, her thumb stuck out toward the road. She wore a light dress that didn't match the chill in the air, and her posture was still, too still. I eased off the gas, didn't mean to. It just sort of happened. Something about seeing someone out there, alone in the middle of nowhere, it gets to you. There's that nagging question in the back of your head. What if she's in real trouble? I pulled over and rolled the window down a few inches. She didn't approach right away, just stood there, her arms crossed like she was trying to stay warm. The look on her face was unreadable, blank, almost like she wasn't fully there. After a few seconds, she finally started walking toward the truck. Her steps were steady, not scared, not eager, like she'd done this before. She stopped beside the door and said something about her car breaking down a while back, said she hadn't seen a soul for hours. Her voice was soft, calm. I asked where she was headed. She didn't give a clear answer, just muttered that she wanted to get away from here. There was a weird pause after that. She didn't ask to get in, just stood there looking past me, toward the darkness behind the truck. A weight settled in my chest, the kind that tightens up your breathing without warning. My eyes flicked to the side mirror, then to the passenger one. There was movement, barely noticeable, but there. A blur low to the ground, then another. I caught a figure darting across the ditch on the opposite side of the road, then another moving fast along the tree line. There were men, 3, maybe 4. They were crouched low, keeping to the shadows, spreading out. One of them appeared by my side of the cab, reached for the handle, yanked hard, nothing, still locked. Another slammed a fist against the side panel. The truck shook slightly, my breath caught in my throat. The woman didn't react, didn't flinch. She just looked up at me, with a strange calm in her eyes, like this was routine. She said something under her breath. I didn't catch the whole thing, but it sounded like a warning, not to resist, not to make it worse. I reached behind the seat and grabbed the shotgun. The click of the action echoed inside the cab, loud and clear. I rested the barrel across the window frame where they could see it, let them think about what they were doing. That changed things fast. The guy by my door backed away. The pounding stopped. One of them, maybe the leader, stepped in the beam of the headlight, knife in hand. He held it out in front of him like it meant something, like it still gave him power. I didn't flinch, just stared back, finger near the trigger. The message landed. He hesitated for a second, then turned, took off toward the fields. The others followed, vanishing into the dark like they were never there. The woman stepped back too. Her face didn't show fear, just disappointment, like she'd seen this outcome before. I fired up the engine and peeled off the shoulder without a word. Gravel kicked up behind me as I gunned it down the highway, my heart pounding against my ribs. I didn't stop until I hit the lights of a gas station an hour later. I parked, shotgun still across my lap, and just sat there in silence. Couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if I hadn't spotted them. They weren't just thieves. That was a setup. She wasn't stranded. She was part of it, meant to draw someone in, and it damn near worked. Since that night, I've passed that same stretch of highway more than once, and sometimes I'll spot a figure on the side of the road, alone, thumb out. I don't stop anymore, because once you do, there's no telling who or what might come out of the dark next. I've been behind the wheel longer than some dispatchers have held a license. 23 years in the seat. Tornadoes, ice storms, back alley knife threats at rest areas. I've been through enough to keep a level head, but there's something about what happened on Highway 56 that sticks with me. It was late last fall, solo run. I was hauling feed corn out of Wichita Falls, headed west to Gallup, route I'd done 100 times. Relaxed, real quiet stretch. Not many towns, which suited me just fine. Gives a man space to think. The kind of road where your thoughts wander, then circle back on themselves. I passed a small place called Medford. I figured I had about another hour before I'd shut it down for the night. Everything felt ordinary, nothing off, nothing strange, until I saw the sign. Green metal, beat to hell. Most of the letters had rusted or been shot off, but I made out rest stop and an arrow. Funny thing is, I'd never seen it before. That didn't make sense. I know that road, not just by memory. I've logged it on GPS and trip sheets for years. Still, I was worn out. Not nodding off tired, but the kind where your arms ache and your head feels heavy. I figured maybe it was some decommissioned old stop I just never noticed. So I turned off. There wasn't much to it. A wide slab of busted pavement, a bit of chain link fence half buried in weeds. No lights, no signs of maintenance, not even a trash bin. I sat there for a minute, engine idling, looking around. Something felt off, like I'd walked into a conversation that had stopped when I entered the room, but I told myself I was being ridiculous. Killed the engine, locked the doors, climbed into the sleeper, and cracked the window for air, same as always. I was out within minutes. I came to suddenly. No dream, no sound, just awake. Something didn't feel right. The silence was too deep, not peaceful, more like everything had shut down. I didn't hear wind or the truck creaking or even bugs. There was also this smell. Sharp, sour, like old trash left in a wet bin too long. It clung to the air, thick and low, like it had been trapped and waiting. I sat up, reached for the flashlight, clicked it on, and aimed it out through the windshield. Someone was standing in the lot, just off the road, still facing me. I thought maybe their car had broken down, but there wasn't one, no movement either, just a guy, tall, thin, arms hanging awkward at his sides. I couldn't see much of his face. Hood was up, shadows all around him, but something about his stance didn't feel right. I reached for the key, turned it, nothing. No turnover. Tried again, still nothing. My truck doesn't just die. I check everything before every run. I waited, tried one more time, slower, still dead. The guy hadn't moved. His posture was strange. Slouched a little too far forward, like he was leaning into the space between us. But he wasn't stepping closer, just standing there, watching. I backed into the sleeper, shut off the flashlight, waited. Minutes passed. Eventually I looked again. He was gone. No footsteps, no noise, just gone from view. I stayed put, watching, trying to listen. Didn't hear anything. Tried the engine again, but nothing. Then something tapped the passenger window. Light, quick, like a knuckle. I didn't turn right away. My thoughts were too loud in my head. Eventually I looked. There was a man's face in the glass. His head was low, like he'd crouched to stare in. The hood was still up. I couldn't see the eyes well, but he was grinning, not wide, not cartoonish, just a stretched little curl at the corner of his mouth. His skin was pale, like someone who hadn't slept in days, cheeks sunken, lips dry, like he hadn't had food or water in a while. He didn't move. I stayed still, held onto the wrench I keep under the mattress, watched him. He didn't knock again, just stood there, close enough his breath fogged a spot on the glass. Then he dropped out of sight. Not fast, not slow, just out of view. I waited, hours maybe. Just sat in the dark, clutching the wrench, heart running hard. Eventually I passed out from sheer exhaustion. Sunlight woke me. Everything looked normal. Same cracked pavement, same scrub brush, birds chirping somewhere nearby, like nothing had happened. But the feeling didn't leave. It stayed with me through every mile. Truck started on the first try. I didn't stop until Gallup. Parked at a busy truck stop full of people. Ate a greasy breakfast I barely tasted. That night I locked the truck tight, pulled the sleeper curtain shut, and saw the prints. 2 handprints, long, streaked down the passenger window, like someone had stood there for a while, pressing in. I cleaned them off without thinking, didn't take a photo, didn't say anything. Couple weeks later, in El Paso, I was fueling up and got to chatting with another driver, mentioned Highway 56, told him I'd pulled into some weird rest stop west of Medford. He stopped mid-sentence, stared at me for a second and said, "You pulled off there?" I nodded. He didn't ask what happened, just shook his head and walked off without finishing his sentence. I reroute now. Go through Amarillo. Adds a couple hours. Worth it. I don't pull off at unfamiliar stops anymore. Don't crack the window. And I trust my instincts, because whatever was out there that night, it wasn't lost. It was looking. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing content. Thanks for watching.